So we're going to go back and, well, actually, we're going to skip ahead to chapter 9, but we're going to go back and cover two of our primitive data types, int, double, char, and boolean. We're gonna take one of those primitive data types, char, and go a little bit more in depth with that today. And then on next class, we're going to go a little bit more in depth with string, which wasn't one of our primitive data types. It's one that has become built in. So everything today is about characters, all right? And as you did those code listings for today, one of the things you should have seen is I need this character class to help me out, okay? And you start to see the word character all over the place. Well, after chapter 9, when we start chapter 6 next week, and we start talking about a class, you're going to start to put all of this stuff together that we've been like talking here and there about throughout the semester. But when I get ready to work with a character, you know, it's methods that are written for me coming from the character class that are we're gonna look at two categories. One where the return type is Boolean. We're gonna test to see if things are true and false. The second group is gonna test doing conversion of characters. So we're going to look at these in two groups, okay? Now, the first group of methods is what you see here. And you've seen them, you saw them in the book, and they were in the code listings. And 18 of you that did the code listings are a little bit familiar with what I'm talking about. The two that haven't aren't, which brings up a question. Have you ever not done the code listings and feel really lost during the lesson? And I'm not going to call anybody out or expect an answer, but I have a feeling that that's no fun to be totally clueless sometimes. All right, so this group of methods right here, what's going on with them? Well, for every one of
They
them,
check for things they check. Okay, they use a character method to check for things in the characters that you wouldn't normally be able to check,
correct,
or that which would be fairly cumbersome to check.
correct. So going back to our lingo, right? Our lingo, an argument, that's what's being passed in. That's up in the main. Okay, that's what's in the first set of parentheses. My parameter list is down with the method heading. So I have chars here, a CH. Okay, the method names, here's a bunch of them. These are all following this same rule. And again, we could get on Google and type in character class methods and we'd see a whole bunch of them. But this first group, they are all the same. They pass an argument that's a character and they're going to return a Boolean data type. And here's an example of one of the method headings. Public static Boolean is digit and char ch, the characters coming in. Now, how does a lot of this work? Well, right there it is. That one word that a lot of you really didn't know what it meant on the first test, but you just happened to have your notes sitting close by and you looked over and you saw it and you typed in ASCII, and it would be perfect if I made it a pop quiz and said, what does ASCII stand for?
American Standard Code for Information Interchange, right?
Nailed it. Very good. Very good. Basically, it says every character has an integer number associated with it. And the ones we look at most of the time are lowercase and uppercase letters. All right. So code listing 9.1, an example of some of these, taking a look at it. When I want to use a method from what we call the character class, I have to put the class name in front of it. Something a little bit different. Well, not different because we've actually seen this before. Think of another situation where I wanted to use methods, but I had to include the class name where it's located. 4 letters. Starts with an M.
Math.
Math, right? We use stuff from the math class, like math.pow, math.py, and so on. Okay, so this is a method from the character class. I'm going to pass in a character, CH. It's flying through the air, it does some work, and it's going to return a Boolean. Here's another key. We're going to input a string. In order to traverse through that string, I'm going to use char at, because this is a string. It's in double quotes. This is a character. It's in single quotes. Common mistake students make. They think, oh, this means the character A, and it's not. That's the string A. Okay, so this is a way to check to see, is it a letter? Here I can take that same one and find out if it's a digit. Is it a lowercase? Is it uppercase? So this is a program that has an example of what's going on with the methods over on this previous page. What's the one on the bottom?
Space
Space. Okay. So if
is
that's
space
space,
char.
then there's one more that becomes curious. What is white space? Uh-oh.
I'm
What
not
is,
sure what the different distinction between space and white space is there.
White
Because
space is
for
also
me, it gave both space and white space when I entered a space bar.
okay.
white space also will report back tabs and new lines.
Yeah. So white space takes up some other things that could be a character.
Okay,
Right,
yeah,
and-
which I guess what couldn't really be applied here since tab and new line don't do anything in those option panes. Or new, well, tab doesn't do anything, new line just goes to
Okay,
just
so
to the
let me ask you this then. Oh, no. What is the first character in this sentence? What is the first
Is
character?
that an L or an I?
That's a slash N, capital H-I.
Oh, so the first character is a new line character.
Yeah, it's actually a character, as we said. So that should fall under the grouping of white space, right? So white space is a little bit more than just, is white space is a little bit more than is space char, okay? This is really good right here. Hint, hint. Private is valid, string, customer number. I'm going to be bringing in a string. I'm going to be returning a Boolean of true or false. This is going to test to see if it is a valid input or not. Now, here's something that we haven't seen in a while, we haven't talked about in a while, but we have talked about it. It's called a flag. A flag is something that I set as true or false. So I'm going to come in and say, yep, I'm going to say good so far, which is what I'm going to return is true. Now, if anything is bad, like the length doesn't equal 7, I change my flag to false. If da 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 da, you know, and I can keep going through here. And if something bad happens, if you know, I don't find a letter, if I don't find a digit, and all, I'm going to change good so far to false, and then I finally return good so far. So if something is bad with my password, I change my flag, which is what my return type was. So, and this is something that gets used. If you stay in computer science more and more, you'll use those flags.
9.2 was such a cool code listing to like break down and look at.
All the little different pieces to it.
It was so like watching the way they used all the tools we've picked up to solve that problem so elegantly. I was blown away having finished it and compiled it and looked through it.
Good, because you're going to use it again. It's not going to go away. Yeah. All right. Next one. We start to hit this next group. Is it a digit? Again, make sure that we use single quotes. Here's one. I'm going to pass. So these were all Boolean return types. Now we're going to get a bunch that are character return types. And here's one method, to lowercase, which is going to take an argument that's a character, send it into the method, and from the method, it's going to return a character. And guess what it's going to return? The lowercase version of an uppercase. So if I start thinking about this method, I'm going to be sending over a character. Now, how will I know if that character is a capital letter? Well, I could see if it equals capital A, or if it equals capital B, or if it equals, no. I don't need 26 if statements, right? How will I know if this is a capital letter?
You could test it against the number at the Unicode range listing for uppercase letters.
Right. You could see if it falls in a certain range of ASCII values. And if it does, how would I change it to a lowercase? Well, what is capital A? Does anybody know?
I think it's like 65.
It is 65. What's lowercase a?
98.
I
Big
think it might
98.
be like 97. So if I have a capital A and I want to change it to a lowercase a, what would I add to it? 32. So I would do like single quote A, single quote plus 32, turns it into a lowercase a. Okay. Got quiet on me all of a sudden, but that's all right.
The book mentions that Java uses Unicode. Where does ASCII come in?
Same thing.
Okay, so it's
Same
just
thing.
same.
I like the term ASCII. That's more of a universal term as well. All right, so where's this thing going to come into play and help me? Well, one of the things you're going to start to do is write programs, whatever it does. And when it's done, if I want to run it again, I have to go click the little running man. Well, in code listing 9.3, what I'm going to have you start to do is in your programs, do the whole program and get it working. Once it works, you're then going to go back and after your declaration section in your main, you're going to start to do things like do. Put this around all of your working code. Do. This is going around your working code. Okay, your working code worked up to here. Right here was the end of the program. Whatever you were doing in the program ended right there. So now you're going to add these lines, 34, system.out.print, do you want to run again? Input. So you're going to read it in and store it. Of course, we'll be using dialog boxes instead here. And you notice we take the input string, we get the char at 0, and we see what the choice is. And then we say, oh, here's the right brace that went with that left brace up with the do. While character.toUpper, just in case they entered a lowercase, I'm going to convert it right away. Because right now, this is the first one, a Y or an N, and whatever they input it. Yes, yeah, yo, yeppers, on and on and on. We're going to get that first character. We're going to change it to an uppercase and see if it equals Y. And if it does, I'll loop back around. Again, I recommend doing this last. Get your program up and running, then add the run again option after it's up and running. Okay, questions on code listing
Yeah.
9.3.
I have a question about 9.2.
Yeah,
So do you see where it says one of the methods, it's a private static Boolean is valid?
I'm up here in the main and I
Yeah.
come down and I say, is valid input. This is where I'm calling the method is valid.
Yeah.
I'm sending in a string and what's being returned? A Boolean, right? And remember, the parentheses in my if statement need to evaluate out as Boolean. So if I return true or false, I can say if true, If it's not, it'll do this part.
Yeah, that was my question because it's a Boolean, so that's like a return value method. So I was wondering,
Yep.
So you get the Boolean from the actual when the method, like it is the
Correct.
method itself. Okay.
Correct. We don't have
yeah.
to do anything else with it.
Okay.
Okay, so you could also write equals true though.
Yes, sir, or yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. but we know it is true, so we can just shorten it up in our if statement. Okay. Good. All right. What are we doing today? Something fun, I hope. That's always fun. All right. I want you to read in a word. I want you to go through a word, a character at a time. Change all the lowercase to uppercase and vice versa. So if I read in a string that looks like this, remember it's in double quotes, so I'm going to have to use char at, I'm going to have to go through it one at a time and possibly build a new string. If it's a lowercase a, turn it to upper. If it's an uppercase, turn it to lower. So this would be my input. This is what my output would be. So you're going to vice versa. Okay. Now, some of you are going to go, okay, that's all great. Don't forget, I could possibly make part of my input the ampersand, you know, and I need this to come out as an ampersand. So make sure you check that out. Second thing I want you to do, read in a string. This is a test, right? And return the number of words. Again, you're going to go through this one at a time. How would you know how to return the number of words? How many words are there here?
Number of white spaces.
Number of white.
I know that if there are multiple white, I guess if you're using proper grammar, then there wouldn't be more than one white space in between words.
Correct. How many words are there here?
4,
How many white spaces?
3.
3. Yep. You could also use double quote, or excuse me, single quote, space, single quote if you wanted to, or you can use his white space. But there's the 2 programs I want you to work on for today.